As sentient species, we create identities. However illusory, we craft them by making value judgments, which is why everybody judges all the time. If you take these judgments personally, or as a way of people telling you how to live your life, instead of a mechanism that people objectively rely on, you are simply taking it the wrong way. It's often an evolving answer, isn't it? When we consider who we are, or rather who we believe ourselves to be. Many of us resort to our surroundings, beliefs, experiences, and interests. But what is our true identity? And how come it's not the same as personality? And why call it identity if it can simply be changed in the first place? It stems from our actions and the choices we make or avoid to engage with our environment. Sometimes, however, we do things that don't match with who we are. Or is it just a feeling? And how much can we trust our feelings and emotions to guide us towards crafting our identities? And why should you even bother? Well, first of all, your identity matters. Everyone is unique, and knowing what sets them apart from others can be beneficial. We can feel more fulfilled by what we do and think if it's coming from ourselves instead of only being told by others what to do. On the other hand, it can be challenging to build our identity if we rely on external assessments by others, as people may have different things to say about us, which can conflict with how we know ourselves. We must have strong beliefs about who we are, because even if people's opinions vary, we can always know what is true and false. We can gain a better direction on what goals and actions we should do and what things we like if we know ourselves well and continue building upon it for personal growth. Historically, there has been a vigorous debate between those who argue that personal identity is established by physical continuity and those who opt instead for psychological continuity. Some call this a mind, spirit, or soul. Others just call it the body, or in more modern terms, the brain. The first group believes that spirit is without spatial reference. The second group argues that for something to exist, it must be locatable in space and time. However, many things exist that are in time but not space, such as past events, fictional characters, and worlds, and the intervals between musical notes or spoken words. Could it be then that mind, spirit, or soul can exist in time, although not in space? Which one of these groups are correct? And the answer is, doesn't matter. Or like Rick says, the answer is don't think about it. Regardless of what it is, I would still have an identity to craft, don't I? So what's the point in knowing anyways? Identity is largely concerned with the question, who are you? What does it mean to be who you are? You would think that most people have identities or that humanity should have figured this one out by now. I mean, we've been here like only forever. Few people choose their identities. Instead, they simply internalize the values of their parents or the dominant cultures, the pursuit of materialism, power, and appearance. Sadly, these values may not be aligned with one's authentic self. If you're gonna be authentic most of the time, you are gonna seem boring to a whole lot of people surrounding you, these same culture slaves. The psychological opinion says a person may hold multiple identities, such as a teacher, father, or friend. I would strongly disagree. I believe that no one truly knows one another, and that's true even for the closest people. As far as identities go, we only have two: a social identity and a personal identity. Being a father or a friend must be categorized in the social identity, and as for how to conduct yourself as a father or a teacher, you will use your personal identity to lay the groundwork. Each position has its own poker face, and I say this with no disregard to the fact that society can act as a positive and negative force on our identity. It would be lovely to find a group that shares aspects of our identity and either help us accept or change how we identify ourselves. One of the most complex and multifaceted factors that influence identity is ethnicity, race, and culture. While we have no control over our race and ethnicity, we can decide to immerse or distance ourselves from the cultures, religions, and customs that we're born into. However, you'll have no choice but to divulge into another culture. It will at least be a culture of your choosing, but it doesn't change the fact that it was never something of your own making. You can make a culture of your own. Liberalism is all about individuality, but at the end of the day, it's just a made-up culture. You could say, well, I'm not a color. Yes, you are. It is part of your identity, a part that you didn't choose. What is awful, though, is that the world gave you a hard time for it. Location and opportunities are perhaps two of the most variable influences on our identities. The country we're born in, the town we live in, and the community we're part of impact our sense of self. The current government, economy, and even the time in which we live impact how we see ourselves and the world. Our contentment with our identity has a lot to do with the opportunities our location affords us. Someone born into Atlanta, Georgia, or Boston, Massachusetts is at least not going to have the same choices to craft an identity as someone from Malawi or Yemen. You can call it fate, injustice, luck, God's prejudice. Depends on your location or culture or religion. I can say depends on your identity, it will not only be grammatically weird, but it's just how much we actually lack identity to make a choice. This makes me contemplate on Kenny's quote, "Everyone was a slave to something." A human is a slave, he doesn't have a choice, but he can choose what to worship. Like society, media has an immediate impact on our perceived reality, or should I say, it is the manifestation of false depictions of reality that can harm our self-perception. Social media specifically gives us a platform to create a virtual identity that can embody elements of our true identity and allow us to withhold certain aspects of ourselves that we may not embrace confidently. We also have the choice to create an entirely different identity as a way to further explore ourselves or cope with our real identity. But then again, this is no different than being a father or a teacher. It is still you using one of your social identity skins. In other words, it is the same you manipulating what you believe is a virtual identity. Personality and identity are overlapping, but distinct constructs. Personality refers to an individual's thoughts, emotions, and behaviors captured by traits, and is crucial for everyday psychological functioning. Identity, on the other hand, involves defining oneself as both unique and similar to others. Under the dark moments, whatever you had been reduced to, a vague awareness in the abyss, when you feel all your definitions fade away, when darkness has consumed all your territories. But if you move on, just a little bit, up ahead beneath that darkness, you will find a deeper meaning and warmth to be felt like, almost like a matter, and that will be your answer.